Welcome to episode 2 of our budget special series of videos. Today we're looking at the announcements surrounding salary sacrifice and pension contributions, which will be of interest to many employers. Let's start with a quick recap on what salary sacrifice is in relation to pension contributions. This is an arrangement where an employee agrees to give up some of their salary. The employer then makes an equivalent contribution into their pension scheme. This is different from a net pay arrangement where a contribution is made by the employee before income tax, but after NI is deducted. Employer contributions, including those made under a salary sacrifice arrangement, are tax deductible for the employer and are not included in the employee's gross pay for tax or NI purposes. When the optional remuneration arrangement rules were introduced in 2017, pension contributions were one of the handful of things that were specifically exempted from being caught. Contrary to what many seem to believe, this is not a legal loophole. It was legislated to encourage people to make private provision for retirement, which in turn helps shift the burden away from the state. Salary sacrifice is a win-win because the employee and employer both save NI. So what's changing? Well, the Chancellor announced that there will be a cap on this double NI benefit, limiting the existing exemption to just £2,000. Any contributions made via a salary sacrifice arrangement in excess of the cap will be subject to NI for both the employee and employer. We won't get the draft legislation for a while, but we expect this will simply make any excess subject to the existing rules, so the amount sacrificed in excess of £2,000 will be treated as any other non-cash benefit subject to OPRA. While this will hit lower-paid employees harder than higher earners, as they pay NI at 8% instead of 2%, the real losers will be employers due to the 15% rate for secondary Class 1. This might put some employers off using salary sacrifice altogether, or some may restrict salary sacrifice to £2,000, with any excess paid using a net pay arrangement, a hybrid arrangement, so to speak. Let's compare the before and after position with a worked example. Consider John, who works for AECOM and earns £36,000 a year. He wants his pension fund to increase by £300 per month and agrees that he will sacrifice this amount of salary in exchange for AECOM making employer contributions. Following the numbers through as shown, this only costs John £216 a month due to the tax and primary Class 1 saving. The arrangement saves the employer £45 because the contribution is deductible for secondary Class 1 purposes. Let's assume AECOM decides to recycle this saving into John's pension. His pot grows by £345 at a net cost to him of just £216. It's easy to see why this is a popular way of making contributions. Now let's pretend it's 2029 and the company has opted for a hybrid scheme. Now the first £2,000 of contributions will continue to benefit from the NI exemption as before. However, the £1,600 under the net pay arrangement is subject to primary and secondary Class 1. This cuts the employee NI saving to £13.33 a month, compared to £24 under the old rules. This equates to a reduction in savings of £128 per year. For AECOM, the £1,600 incurs secondary Class 1 at 15%, which is £20 per month and £240 for the year. The additional cost between the employee and employer is £368. As you can see, the cost to the employer for this relatively modest amount of contribution is nearly double that of the employee. To underpin that this is really an employer's tax hike, suppose that John gets promoted, becoming a higher rate taxpayer that wants to put £10,000 a year into his pension. The new rules will see this cost him just £160 in primary Class 1, but the company will incur £1,200, 6 times more than John's cost in terms of NI. The higher the contributions, the more exacerbated this gap will become. It's difficult to pinpoint any concrete opportunities for savings, as we don't yet know how the rules are going to work, but we can speculate a bit. Currently, it's possible to sidestep the OPRA rules if the employee isn't given the choice to sacrifice salary in exchange for benefits. So, One way around the rules might be for the employer to decide unilaterally to make employer contributions in lieu of making a particular level of pay rise. If the 2029 changes operate the same way as the current rules, this would be sufficient to retain the NI savings, as the employee isn't sacrificing anything by definition. It might also make sense to front-load contributions to fall before the changes. However, a word of caution: the government could well anticipate these types of tactics and introduce further legislation to forestall them. We simply can't know yet. Additionally, there are logistical questions that need answering. What will happen regarding employees that have more than one job with employers operating salary sacrifice? What about employees that change jobs during the year? Hopefully, there will be a public consultation to address concerns like this, which have immediately caused concern among the professional bodies.
That's it for the second episode of this budget special series. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like and subscribe so you receive notifications of future episodes. Please do take a look at our one-stop web shop, where you can find all of our tax solutions in one place. The link is shown below.